Well, happy Monday morning to you guys. This past weekend is when we moved our clocks an hour ahead. And it amazes me whenever there's a time change. People are late for work, they're late for school, they're late for church, they're late for this, that, and the other. But this time change is almost inexcusable. As I was going to work this morning, there were people dropping off their kids at school very late. But this is the one where we get an extra hour of sleep, an extra hour to do anything, including getting ready for the day and out the door. And yet people are still running late. It's pretty amazing. I hope that's not you. I enjoy this time change. I enjoy the extra hour. It just feels like I get an extra 2 hours more or less. So I'm going to give you a couple of things to think about today. I hope you enjoy these. If you do, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. And just a few little miscellaneous items for you to kind of chew on, maybe, and once you hear them, you can share them with other people. I don't know if you know who Lily Tomlin is. Back in the day, back in the 70s and the 80s, she was a stand-up comedian, pretty funny. She's still around. I mostly remember her from the movie 9 to 5, which is a hilarious movie. If you've never seen it, you should watch it. 9 to 5. Dabney Coleman plays a nefarious boss who the ladies get revenge on. It's Dolly Parton's in it, Jane Fonda. It's just a fantastic movie. But Lily Tomlin once said, she goes, "I always knew that someday I'd want to be somebody, but I see now that I should have been more specific." That's pretty funny, isn't it? She should have been more specific. What did you want to be when you grew up? What do you want to be now? Where do you see yourself in the future? How do you see yourself? What kind of person are you? What do you see yourself doing? It's very important to envision what we want to be, how we want to be doing things, what we want to be remembered for, what kind of legacy we're going to have. And it kind of helps to define the parameters. And but you know what? I don't have good advice for this because those are always changing. The boundaries are always changing. Our mode of making things happen always changes because we're just always changing as people, and we should be. You find a better way, and you adapt. But I thought it was a funny quote, and I wanted to share it with you. And you can't always be perfect. You're probably not always gonna live up to what you want to be, how you see yourself. But if you shoot for the stars, you might reach the moon. And this makes me think, when I talk about not being perfect, it makes me think of where we get the word, I don't know how you'd say that. When you say something is A1, like A1 steak sauce, or you might describe anything that is perfect as A1. When something's when you've hit the nail on the head, when you've hit the button, when you've hit the mark, when you've reached your goal, when something is just the stellar example, you might say it's A1. Did you guys know where that came from? I'm going to share it with you here right now. Here's how it goes. A1 came about when the marine insurance firms of London started the association later to become known as Lloyd's. You've heard of Lloyd's of London, right? They insure a lot of things for just millions of dollars. I remember back in the day on Entertainment Tonight, Dixie Watley, back in the 80s, she was on there. Man, I'm really showing my age here. I knew that she had shared her. I knew that she had insured her legs for $1 million a piece, I believe. That's the kind of thing they do. But anyway, when the marine insurance firms of London became Lloyd's of London, they also started a register of ships and shipping in which the condition of the ships and their cargo was noted. The ships were graded by letter, the cargoes by number. A meant the ship itself was perfect, and 1, that the cargo was likewise perfect. So whenever you say something's A1, you're saying that it's perfect. It's better than being B2, right? C3? I don't know. Who knows? I mean, you get the idea though, right? But you can't always be A1. But it's nice to try. So I wanted to share a little story with you that I thought that you could actually learn something from. This took place back in 1939 when radio was big and everybody, you could make a lot of money in it, like you do TV now. Or even any kind of social media where people are doing podcasts and people are just making millions of dollars doing this kind of thing. But there was in radio back in the day, there was a man named Uncle Don. Now, I think this is a little creepy, personally. I'm going to tell you why. Because I guess there's a little show, there's a little song they sung in the show when it would open. And I guess Uncle Don would sing this. I don't know what he looked like. But the words to the little song they would sing in the show, and it was for kids. Uncle Don, this show is for kids. But the words of this little piece was, "Hello, nephews, nieces mine. I'm glad to see you look so fine. This is Uncle Don, your Uncle Don. Hello, little friends, hello." Things sounded different back then than they do now. But anyway, here's how this goes. This Uncle Don is a famous wheedling radio character whose sales approach is celebrating children's birthdays over the air. Kids will do anything, even to calling mother out of the kitchen to hear what Uncle Don has to say about Wesson Oil. Pally Uncle Don has a club in which not only Sisty and Buzzy Doll, grandchildren of President Roosevelt, but Shirley Temple are members, and full membership is earned by sending in for tokens of every product. So listen to this, get this. So membership is earned by sending in for tokens of every product Uncle Don plugs. Sounds a lot like social media, right? One season he plugged 14, and full-fledged members eventually cost their parents a pretty penny. But parents tolerate him because he inveighs against social errors, as nail-biting, temper, socking, preaches a series of corrective little stories involving two hypothetical and unruly tykes named Willipus Wallopus and Susan Badoozin. Somehow all this is beguiling to children, is as beguiling to children as bubblegum. Uncle Don would part with plenty of his income to be rid of the persistent but apocryphal tale that one day, when he mistakenly thought he was off the air after a particularly luscious cluster of cliches and commercials, he sighed and said, "There, I guess that'll hold the little bastards." I mean, you've heard about people doing, public speaking and have a microphone on. They forgot to turn it off and they go to the bathroom, which is pretty embarrassing. But this was career crippling for Uncle Don. Be careful what you say. He thought he was off the air. The mic was still on. And he says, "There, I guess that'll hold the little bastards." That was the end of it for him. So be careful what you say, where you say it, when you say it, and who's listening. You got to be paying attention to these things. I think we've all had the experience of saying things we shouldn't at a time that was crippling for us. You know what else was going on in the news in 1939? Here's a few things that made the newspapers, or some newspaper. Short little things that you might have seen inserted somewhere in the pages of the news back then. Here's one. In a Paris apartment house, police investigated the suspicious circumstances of 10 gas pipe leaks in the same apartment within a few weeks. A maid arrested confessed that she had caused 9 of the leaks because she fell in love with the plumber who repaired the first one. Wow. When a woman loves a man, what she won't do, right? Here's another one. In Crouch, Idaho, state prison guards lost a bloodhound. Use another one to find him. In Chicago, the Hotel Association announced a new guest service. A dummy in impeccable dress to unjinx dinner parties of 13. Can you imagine sitting next to a dummy? If you were the 13th person, if you were the 13th guest at the table and you had to sit next to a dummy, because it would be bad luck to have just 13 at the table. Or just, I'm not superstitious, are you? I can't think of any superstitions. My wife says she has a few. She says she puts bad juju on football players when they're playing. I'm not so sure that it always works. After all, the Bucs did not win yesterday, and they haven't had a good record this year. But she believes she has, she says she won't open an umbrella inside. I kind of snickered at that. She named off a few other things that she does. She's kind of superstitious about. And I said, I don't think I have any superstitions. Do I have any observable superstitions that you know of, Kara? And she told me, no, you're pretty unmagical. I'm pretty unmagical? Does that mean I'm not very Disney? And I told her, I said, Kara, you say the weirdest things. And this is why I should be doing a video with my wife. She says the weirdest, craziest things I would never think of. I told her I'm going to start calling her Quotable Kara. Here's another one. In 1939, in Dearborn, Michigan, Mrs. Stella Maud Kronberg spied a dog struggling among the ice floes in River Rouge. She got out her boat, spent 2 hours smashing her way through the ice, pulled back to shore with the dog in her arms. Once there, the dog bit her in the cheek and scampered off. She died of rabies. Can you imagine? Be careful. Be careful who you help. You've heard the term, you've heard the saying, don't throw your pearls before swine. Well, be careful about who you help. You never know who has rabies. You never know who's going to turn on you and bite you, and then later on, you suffer this affliction. You go out in a less than glorious way. Here's my last thing for you guys. Here's my last thing. Do you know what a shrike is? I had to look this up. A shrike, S-H-R-I-K-E, a shrike is some kind of hook-billed bird with, I guess, some kind of teeth in his bill. I might not be getting that exactly right. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I guess what these birds do is they catch their prey and they impale their prey on thorns so they can devour their bodies easier, and they actually kill more than they can consume. That's what a shrike is. But here's a story from James Thurber. Now, I've told you before about James Thurber, how strange and how weird his stories are. Here's a funny little story by James Thurber called The Shrike and the Chipmunks. And here you go. Once upon a time, there were 2 chipmunks, a male and a female. The male chipmunk thought that arranging nuts in artistic patterns was more fun than just piling them up to see how many you could pile up. The female was all for piling up as many as you could. She told her husband that if he gave up making designs with the nuts, there would be room in their large cave for a great many more, and he would soon become the wealthiest chipmunk in the woods. But he would not let her interfere with his designs, so she flew into a rage and left him. The shrike will get you, she said, because you are helpless and cannot look after yourself. To be sure, the female chipmunk had not been gone 3 nights before the male had to dress for a banquet and could not find his studs or shirts or suspenders. So he couldn't go to the banquet, but that was just as well, because all the chipmunks who did go were attacked and killed by a weasel. The next day, the shrike began hanging around outside the chipmunk's cave, waiting to catch him. The shrike couldn't get in because the door was clogged up with soiled laundry and dirty dishes. He will come out for a walk after breakfast, and I will get him then, thought the shrike. But the chipmunk slept all day and did not get up and have breakfast until after dark. Then he came out for a breath of air before beginning work on a new design. The shrike swooped down to snatch up the chipmunk, but he could not see very well on account of the dark, so he batted his head against an alder branch and was killed. A few days later, the female chipmunk returned and saw the awful mess the house was in. She went to the bed and shook her husband. "What would you do without me?" she demanded. "Just go on living, I guess," he said. "You wouldn't last 5 days," she told him. She swept the house and did the dishes and sent out the laundry, and then she made the chipmunk get up and wash and dress. "You can't be healthy if you lie in bed all day and never get any exercise," she told him. So she took him for a walk in the bright sunlight, and they were both caught and killed by the shrike's brother, a shrike named Stoop. The moral? Early to rise and early to bed makes a male healthy and wealthy and dead. There you go. There you have it. What is it with these females and Thurber's stories? Can you relate at all? Put your comments below. I hope you've enjoyed it. And make sure you pay attention to the description in the box. There might be something in there that might be of interest to you. And I hope you have a great day, guys. I will catch you on the next one. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.